Mother, forgive me, this tale begins on a night when the wind moved like an ancient spirit through the tall grass of the savannah, carrying whispers that brushed the ears of those who listened with open hearts in the village of Embaro. A woman named Amina sat beside the fading fire, her hands trembling as she held the last woven cloth her mother ever touched. The elders said the ancestors walked close that night, and Amina felt them moving in the shadows between the huts, their unseen feet stirring the red dust that held the memories of generations. The moon rose slow and heavy, glowing like a watchful eye over the land, and Amina felt its weight pressing on her chest, for her mother had left this world only 7 days earlier, and her spirit was said to still wander near the doorway between life and the land beyond. Amina expected grief to be a quiet thing, but her husband Malu treated it as a passing joke during the burial. He had laughed, a short, sharp sound that cut through her heart like a thorn coated in fire. And though the others looked away in shame, his laughter stayed with her, haunting her sleep and waking hours alike. Now, as the fire cracked softly and the wind hummed low, Amina remembered his voice echoing like a stranger in her ears. "Why cry over what must happen?" he had said. "You mourn too much, and the spirits will think you are weak." These words had twisted inside her, and she wondered if the man she married still carried a soul that understood compassion. But she stayed silent, for silence was the shield her mother once taught her to use on nights when sorrow felt too heavy to hold. It was said that when the heart cracks, the ancestors hear it, and when the heart cries, the spirits gather. So Amina kept her tears inside, letting only the flames see her trembling lips. But the village had its own ways of stirring old pain, and as Amina sat there, the drums from the far end of Embaro began to pulse through the night, calling warriors, elders, children, and wanderers. They called every spirit, both living and dead, and their sound filled her chest like a flood that drowned every quiet thought. She rose slowly, her bare feet sinking into the warm dust, and walked toward the sound, each step carrying the memory of her mother's voice, a voice soft as morning rain and strong as the roots of the baobab tree. When she reached the gathering circle, she saw many faces glowing in the firelight, but one face stood out, the face of Malu, her husband, sitting among his drinking friends, his shoulders shaking with laughter again and again while he told a story Amina could not hear but felt in her bones. She saw the others lean in, smiling wide, and their joy struck her like a slap, as if her mother's spirit was nothing but a tale to be passed around at a fire. She stood there frozen, the flames reflecting in her eyes, until the eldest woman of the village, Mother Yala, touched her arm gently. "Child," she whispered, "the night hears what we do not speak, and it remembers more than we can imagine." Amina nodded, but could not speak, for the drums slowed, then softened until the night held its breath, and into that breath came a cold shift, something unseen moving through the circle like the shadow of a great bird. The men stopped laughing, the children grew still, even the fire bent low as if bowing, and from beyond the huts a figure approached, tall, wrapped in a cloak made from the hide of a white lion, its mane hanging like strands of moonlight. It was not a spirit, but a man known across the kingdom, Chief Kardu, the high boss of the northern traders, and the one who commanded respect from warriors, kings and hunters alike. His steps were slow but heavy with meaning, and his eyes glowed with a knowing light that made even the flames flicker with fear. He stopped before the circle and looked straight at Amina, then at Malu, who had straightened his back, trying to hide the drunken laughter that still clung to his face. "Chief," Kardu spoke with a voice deep as thunder rolling over far mountains. "There are nights when the ancestors rise," he said, "and tonight they rise for her." His hand lifted slowly, pointing at Amina. The wind shifted again, wrapping around her legs like the touch of an unseen mother. Malu looked confused, then forced a smile, as if trying to charm the moment into something simple. But Chief Kardu shook his head slowly. "No man laughs at the passing of a mother," he said, "for the ancestors walk with mothers more closely than with kings, and they do not forget disrespect." Amina felt her knees weaken. The village watched in silence, and the spirits seemed to move closer, their presence thick in the air like mist on a cold river morning. Chief Kardu stepped closer to Malu, and the firelight caught his eyes, revealing something ancient, something that saw through all lies. "The man you mock has not left," he said, turning to Amina. "Your mother stands behind you now, listening to the heart that once beat inside her, and to the one who dared to laugh at her silence." The circle stirred, but no voice rose to speak. The air grew colder, as if the night itself leaned in, waiting to hear what would happen next. Chief Kardu raised his hand once more, and the drums began again, slow, heavy, like footsteps of something approaching from the world beyond. "Your mother has spoken to me," he said, his eyes never leaving a malice face, "and what she said will change everything." That follows his words hung in the air, trembling like a leaf on the edge of a storm, and Amina felt her breath leave her body, for the night had shifted, and nothing would ever return to its old shape again. The night trembled as Chief Kardu's words settled over the circle like a heavy cloth woven from fear and memory, and Amina felt the world tilt, as if unseen hands pushed the earth beneath her feet. The drums beat slow and deep, shaking the dust, rising from the ground like spirits waking from long sleep, and Marlu stared at the chief, his eyes wide, his breath unsteady, for the laughter that once filled his mouth now tasted like ash and guilt. The villagers moved closer, forming a ring around the fire, their shadows stretching long and thin like fingers reaching for truth that hid in the dark, and Amina felt the wind shift again, brushing against her skin, cool and soft like her mother's old touch, the one she remembered from childhood, when her mother would calm her with a simple hand on the back, whispering that spirits protect those who respect love and loss. Chief Kadu stepped forward, his cloak moving like the hide of a living beast, glowing in the fire glow, and every step made the ground hum as if the ancestors marched. With him he spoke again, his voice heavy, powerful, shaped by mountains and ancient paths. Your mother calls for balance, child, he said, and his eyes met Amina, eyes holding them steady like strong hands, holding a trembling heart. She says wrong has been done and wrong must be answered. Amina's chest tightened, her breath coming slow, for she felt something behind her, something she could not see, but could feel like a river of cold water tracing the length of her spine. Marlu shook his head, trying to speak, his voice cracking like dry wood under the sun. I meant no harm, he tried to say, but his words came weak, thin, swallowed by the night. Mother Yala raised her staff, the carved wood glowing faintly in the fire shimmer, and she stepped toward him, her face lined with wisdom etched deep by seasons both harsh and gentle. No man speaks of meaning until the spirits have spoken, she said, and her voice cut through the gathering like a blade made of truth. Then Chief Kadu lifted his hand and the drums ceased at once, leaving a silence so thick the air felt shaped and heavy. The chief turned to Amina. Look beyond the fire, child, look into the place between seen and unseen, and tell us what waits there. Amina heart pounded, but she obeyed, lifting her eyes beyond the flames, beyond the circle, into the darkness where the wind moved shapes. She stared, her breath catching as the shadows bent, shifted, then formed into a faint outline, glowing pale like moonlit mist, a figure standing tall, thin, wrapped in cloth. She recognized the shape even before the face began to form, though the face itself was soft, blurred like river water moving over stone. Yet the presence was her mother, the scent of her herbs, the warmth of her voice, the weight of her love, all pressed around Amina, and she felt tears rise, but she did not let them fall, for she remembered her mother's words. Sorrow must be carried with steady hands. Amina tried to speak, but the sound caught in her throat. The villagers watched wide-eyed as the faint figure lifted its hand, pointing toward Marlu, who stumbled back, as if struck by a force greater than spear or blow. Chief Kadu's voice rose low and slow. The ancestors demand truth, he said, and truth cannot hide in the shadows of laughter or pride. He stepped closer to Marlu, his presence towering, though he did not touch him, only stared deeply, as if searching inside the man for something buried. Marlu's body trembled, his knees weakening, his breath shallow. He tried to look away, but the chief's gaze held him like chains forged from spirit fire. I laughed, because I was afraid, he said, his words stumbling, fear making them thin and small. I did not know what to do. I am not heartless, I am only weak, chief. Kadu did not blink. Weakness is not a sin, he said slowly, but mocking the passing of a mother is a call to spirits that do not answer with kindness. The villagers murmured, the wind rising around them, circling the fire, swirling dust like dancing ancestors. Amina clenched her hands, hearing Marlu's confession, but feeling no comfort. Each word sounded like a stone dropping into deep water, sinking, disappearing without meaning. The glowing figure behind her mother's shape pulsed bright for a moment, then dimmed, as if waiting for the right truth, waiting for the right voice to break the lingering shadows. Chief Kadu stepped back and raised both hands. The fire rose higher, sparks climbing into the night like burning birds taking flight. Then the chief turned his gaze to Amina. Speak, child, he said, the spirits hear you and they wait. Amina swallowed the air thick, heavy, her heart steadying with a strength she did not expect. She lifted her chin and spoke, her voice soft but clear. I mourn my mother with all that I am. And the man beside me laughed at my pain, laughed at her memory, laughed at her journey into the land beyond. And now the spirits ask for truth. But truth is simple, he does not know the value of love or loss. Marlu winced, as if struck. Amina continued, her voice stronger, now shaped by the spirit that stood behind her. I carry her name, I carry her teachings, I carry her blood. She carried me through storms, sickness, hunger and joy. And he threw mockery upon her final path. The glow behind Amina brightened, the villagers gasped, and the flames bent inward then outward, as if the world breathed with her words. Chief Kadu nodded slowly. The ancestors accept your truth, child, but one truth remains untold, a truth carried from kingdoms beyond and spoken to me before I came to this village. This night. Marlu looked up, confused, fear twisting his face like tangled rope. What truth, he asked, his words shaking. Chief Kadu turned to him, his eyes gleaming like two embers caught in strong wind. The truth your own mother kept hidden, the truth you thought long buried, but no secret stays quiet. When the spirits rise, the villagers leaned closer, every ear open, every breath held. and the figure behind Amina stepped nearer, its glow touching the ground, spreading like silver light across the dust. Chief Kardu lifted his staff, the carved head glowing, and he spoke slowly, each word deep, echoing through the circle. The laughter you gave to her passing was not yours alone, but a shadow of a curse placed on your bloodline. And tonight that curse awakens. The night fell silent, even the wind froze around them, and Amina felt her heart drop, for this was no simple truth, but the beginning of something larger, darker, heavier than any of them had imagined, and the spirits waited for what would come next. The silence wrapped around the circle like a long ancient serpent, coiling between every villager, every breath, every trembling heart. And the fire dimmed, as if it too feared what Chief Kardu had spoken. Amina felt the air tighten around her lungs, her mother faint spirit glowing behind her like soft moonlight pressed against her back. And Malu stood shaking, his hands trembling, as though cold river water flowed through his veins. Instead of blood, Chief Kardu eyes burned bright like embers that had lived through 1,000 storms, and he walked in a slow circle around the fire, each step marking the earth with the weight of prophecy he carried. When he finally stopped before Malu, he lifted his staff, and the carvings along it pulsed with soft light, shaped like ancient symbols no longer taught, but still remembered by the spirits. The curse begins with a name, the chief said, and the wind rose the dust, swirling into the shape of thin twisting patterns, a forbidden oath spoken by a mother to protect a son, yet to harm all who walked near him. Malu tried to speak, but his voice cracked, his chest rising and falling too fast, his fear spilling into the night like water from a broken pot. My mother loved me, he whispered, she would never curse me. Chief Kardu turned slowly, his cloak shimmering under the fire glow, shadows wrapping around him like wandering ancestors. Love can twist when fear shapes it, he said, and the circle murmured, for every villager knew the old tales of mothers who called spirits to protect their children, ways that sometimes bent fate and shadowed futures. Amina stared at Malu, watching the fear carve itself deep into his face. She wondered what truth lay buried behind his denial. She wondered how many secrets his blood carried, and why her own mother spirit rose now to witness it. The faint figure behind her brightened slightly, as if urging the night to reveal what had been hidden for so long. Chief Kardu motioned with his hand, and Mother Yala stepped forward, the beads around her neck clacking softly together. Licho, crafted by an elder long gone but still present in the memory of the land mother. Yala spoke, her voice low but steady. The curse hides in the laughter of grief, the laughter that spills where silence should live, the laughter that mocks the passing of a soul that has touched the earth. This is laughter that does not come from joy, but from shadow. Malu took a step back, shaking his head. No, this is madness. My mother never told me any curse. I only laughed because I was nervous, scared, lost. Mother Yala lifted her staff gently but firmly. Fear does not twist a man's voice into scorn, she said. Fear does not guide the mouth to wound those who mourn. This was something older, deeper, a whisper from your blood. Long before your birth, the drums began again, slow, soft, as if played by invisible hands, and the fire crackled, rising, then falling like breath. Amina closed her eyes for a moment, seeking strength in the memory of her mother, voice wise, warm and steady. And when she opened them, she saw something strange in the dust near Malu, feet, dark shapes moving, swirling, forming symbols. She did not know, symbols that glowed faint red like distant fire buried under earth. The villagers gasped, stepping back, murmuring words of protection. Chief Kardu pointed at the symbols. They have woken, he said. They rise when truth comes close. Malu stared down, unable to look away, his body trembling harder. The symbols twisted, pulsed, then sank slowly into the ground, as though swallowed by the earth. Amina felt her skin prick with cold, her breath shaking as she sensed her mother spirit come closer, the faint figure almost standing beside her, now soft, warm, even in its ghostly glow. It felt like protection. Chief Kardu turned to Amina. Child, your mother says the truth must rise through you, for you are the one who carries her memory, her teachings, her quiet strength. She wants you to ask the question that will open what has been locked. Amina heart pounded slow, heavy, each beat echoing through her bones. She looked at Malu, feeling sorrow, anger, confusion, and something she could not name. She took a step forward, the ground warm beneath her feet, the fire casting her shadow long and steady. And she spoke, her voice soft but clear. What did your mother fear so much that she called spirits to guard you? What darkness followed your blood that she believed only a curse could keep it away? The wind screamed, suddenly tearing through the circle, whipping the flames, sending sparks shooting upward like fleeing birds. The villagers ducked their bodies, trembling. Mother Yala shouted, still, child, let the spirits answer. Chief Kardu held up his staff, and the wind calmed slowly, as if forced back by unseen hands. Then Malu sank to his knees, his breath ragged, his hands covering his face, as if he hid from something he already knew, but never wanted to face. My mother feared my father, he said, his voice soft, broken, trembling. She feared what he was, and what he carried. Amina felt her stomach twist. Chief Kardu nodded slowly, urging him to continue. Malu took a shaking breath. My father was a hunter from the Shadowlands. He said a man who walked with spirits, not the kind who protect, but the kind who feed on sorrow, the kind who whisper in dreams, the kind who claim pieces of hearts with invisible hands. The villagers gasped, no one spoke, for stories of shadow hunters were known, feared, whispered only at night, the kind of tales that made children huddle close to their mothers, and elders pray louder during storms. Marlu forced the words out. Her brothers died young. He said the spirits took them one by one. She thought I was next. She thought the darkness in his blood would swallow me, so she called the ancestors to guard me, and the only thing she had left to offer was an oath, a curse woven to protect, but twisted by fear. Chief Cardu's voice rang across the circle, strong and deep. When spirits twist to protect, they also bind. And the curse she called brought a shadow that must feed, and it feeds on grief, on death, on loss, that is mocked. Her oath carries a price, and tonight that price comes due. Amina felt cold wrap around her arms like a lingering ghost, for the faint shape of her mother behind her glowed brighter, until the outline shimmered steady like a figure stepping from dreams into waking life. Her mother's spirit lifted a hand, pointing at Marlu again. The fire roared high, and a deep hum rose from the ground, vibrating through every foot, every bone. The villagers clutched each other, some crying, some praying. Mother Yala raised her staff and shouted, the ancestors demand the final truth. Speak now, child, before the curse completes its circle. Chief Cardu stepped toward Amina. The next truth must come from you. What do you feel standing before the man tied to this shadow? What does your mother ask through your heart? Amina's chest rose with slow, trembling breath. She felt her mother's presence, warm, strong, guiding her words. She stepped closer to Marlu and whispered the truth that lived inside her. I feel that this curse does not belong to you alone, but you carried it blindly, hurting others without knowing, and now it seeks something more, something it was denied. The ground shook lightly, dust rising again, swirling around the circle, the fire dimming, then flaring as though reacting to her words. Chief Cardu's voice thundered through the night. The turning point has begun. The curse awakens fully now, and what it seeks will reveal itself before the night ends. And the spirits watched. The villagers trembled, and Amina felt her mother's spirit step even closer, glowing brighter, preparing for what was coming next. The ground trembled in a slow, rising rhythm, as if an ancient beast slept beneath the earth, and had begun to stir, its heavy breath pushing through soil dust and roots. The firelight flickered, wild shadows stretching long across the circle, twisting like spirits caught between worlds. And Amina felt her heart pound in her chest, each beat carrying the echo of her mother's voice, calling her toward a truth she feared to face. The villagers stood frozen, their eyes wide, their hands gripping each other as if flesh could protect them from what walked unseen around them. And Chief Cardu raised his staff, the carvings glowing brighter than before, lighting the night with a pale gold shimmer that fought against the dark wind. Circling the gathering, his voice rose deep, steady, carrying the weight of generations. A truth untold still holds the curse in place, and until it rises, the shadow will grow stronger. The wind whipped suddenly, lifting Amina braids, tossing dust into her eyes. But she did not blink. She felt her mother's spirit behind her, warm, softer presence that wrapped around her like a cloak, woven from memory and love. Marlu knelt before the fire, shaking as though cold night water poured over him, his voice trapped inside him, his breath shallow, as if invisible hands pressed against his throat. Mother Yala moved closer, her steps careful, steady, as if walking through the breath of spirits. She lowered her staff, touching the earth, and the soil glowed faint. Red then deepened into a swirling pattern like a spiral, pulling the night inward. She whispered, the curse hunts a heart that once wronged it, a heart connected to grief, a heart tied to the mother who stands behind Amina. Amina felt the air tighten around her, the presence of her mother's spirit growing heavier, filling her lungs, shaping her thoughts, guiding her steps. She whispered softly, though her voice carried across the silent circle, mother, what truth waits here? What darkness follows our blood? What wound remains open? Chief Cardu turned toward her, his face grave, carved by years of spirit knowledge and long journeys across lands where mountains whispered old secrets. He said, your mother wants you to know something she never told you. Well, she lived something she carried in silence, because she feared it might break your heart. Amina felt cold rise from the ground, wrapping around her ankles, climbing slow like vines made of ice and memory. She stared into the faint outline of her mother's spirit, seeing the shape flicker brighter for a moment, as if preparing to speak, but then dimming, unable to force the truth into sound. Chief Cardu lifted his staff, and the fire roared upward, sending sparks shooting into the sky like scattered stars. Speak, child. He said, the spirits ask for what you already know, but have never named. Amina shook her head, confusion swirling in her like storm winds. How can I know what she never told me? Chief Cardu's voice softened. Grief often leaves echoes in a daughter's heart, even when she does not understand them. Marlu looked up, his face pale, sweat sliding down his brow, though no warmth touched the night. His voice cracked, soft, shaking. Please, I do not want this curse to take me. The spirits around me grow louder. I feel them moving, waiting, angry. Amina stepped closer, the fire painting her face with gold, and amber her eyes, fixed on her mother's spirit, her breath steadying, as she listened to the quiet whisper rising inside her, a whisper that sounded like the echo of a forgotten memory. And then the memory came not in words, but in feeling, a night long ago, a cry, a fear, her mother pressing her close, her mother trembling as she whispered, "You are safe, my child, safe from him." Amina's voice broke through the silence like a soft blade. Mother Yala and Chief Kardu turned toward her, their eyes watching, listening. She spoke slowly, each word heavy as stone. "I remember a night when my mother held me close. She was crying, shaking. She said someone wanted to take me. She said a man was searching for me, and he carried darkness." Inside him, Chief Kardu nodded, urging her to continue, his face lit by the flames casting long shadows behind him like wings made of spirit light. Amina bowed her head, the truth rising inside her like water forced through cracks. She whispered, "That man was your father." Malu. Malu eyes widened, terror spreading through him. He shook his head, "No. He never came here, he never touched this village." Amina met his gaze, her voice steady, strong, filled with the clarity of a truth long buried. "He came once before I was born. He sought my mother, and she hid from him because he carried darkness, and she feared he would claim me." Chief Kardu raised his staff, and lightning cracked across the sky, without thunder, a sharp white flash that lit the entire circle, and every villager fell to their knees. "The curse links your blood," he declared. "Your father sought the mother of the one who stands before you, and in doing so bound your line to hers through fear, through the oath your mother made." Amina felt her mother's spirit pulse with strong bright light, filling her chest with warmth and sorrow. The fire dimmed to a low blue glow, shadows pushing inward, as if the darkness circled closer. Mother Yala moved around the pair, her beads rattling softly. "The spirits now seek balance. They seek to finish what was started years ago, when fear twisted two separate lives into one tangled fate." The wind howled through the trees, bending the branches, as though great invisible hands pushed them aside. And the ground vibrated again, this time, stronger, a deep hum rising through Amina. Feet shaking her bones, Malu cried out, clutching his head. "The voices are louder, they bite at my soul. They want something from me." Chief Kardu stepped forward, his voice echoing like old thunder. "They want confession, they want truth. They want the missing piece of the story. Tell it now, before the shadow takes full form." Malu, shaking, tears running down his cheeks, breathed ragged words. "My mother told me that my father once followed a woman. A woman he believed carried a gift, a secret, a power he wanted to take," she said. "He failed," she said. "He was cursed for trying." Amina heart pounded, for she knew the woman in the story, her mother. Her mother had been the one hunted. Chief Kardu lifted his staff high, and the blue flames exploded upward, twisting into tall figures, shadow spirits rising from the earth, their forms stretching thin like smoke, shaped into faces twisted in hunger. The villagers screamed, clutching each other. But no one fled, for the circle held them trapped, bound by the rising curse. Amina felt her mother spirit push her forward, guiding her to stand before the largest of the shadows, a form with hollow eyes and a mouth that seemed to swallow all light. She felt no fear, only a strange calm, a deep ancient understanding. She whispered the truth that broke the final barrier. "My mother was the woman your father hunted, and he wanted me before I was even born." The wind exploded around them, the shadows shrieked high, sharp, like wounded creatures. Then the deepest silence fell, heavy, thick, cutting through the air, and the curse awakened fully, its presence rising like a storm made of grief and old scars. And Amina, mother spirit, stepped forward, brighter than ever, preparing to face what the night had been holding back since the beginning. The air thickened until every breath felt like pulling smoke into the lungs, and the shadow spirits rose higher over the circle, stretching long thin arms toward the fire, their forms flickering like torn cloth caught between this world and the next. Amina stood with her mother spirit. Beside her, their two silhouettes merging as the flames bent away, afraid of the power that gathered. Chief Kardu raised his staff, and the symbols carved into it glowed gold, then white, then deep red, like embers pulled from the heart of a dying star. The villagers pressed together, some whispering prayers, some sobbing quietly, some too frozen to move. The ground shook, spirals of dust swirling around Amina's feet, as if the earth itself recognized her role in the curse that had finally woken. Malu cried out again, tears streaming down his face. As he held his head, the voices, they scratch, they bite, they scream. Chief Kardu's voice thundered above the wind. They scream for truth, scream for balance, scream for the end of what was started by your father. Shadow spirits circled him, their shapes twisting like serpents made from dark water, and one leaned close, its face hollow, its breath cold enough to freeze the air around. Malu, he convulsed, falling onto the warm dust, grasping at the earth, as if trying to anchor himself. Amina felt her mother spirit lean closer, wrapping invisible arms around her, and the warmth steadied her heart, smoothing the tremble in her hands. "Child," her mother presence whispered, Without sound the time has come, the fire roared, suddenly rising tall, brushing the sky, sparks spinning out in a wild dance. Chief Cardu, voice deep, powerful, filled the circle. The curse tied two bloodlines through fear and through desire, and only the bearer of the hunted heart can end it. Amina, lips parted, her voice soft but strong. What must I do? Mother Yala stepped forward, her old eyes glowing strangely, as if reflecting worlds beyond this one. You must face the one who first cast the shadow, the one whose hunger began this path. She pointed to the largest shadow spirit, the one whose hollow eyes watched Amina with cold focus. A weight fell over her shoulders, heavy, but not crushing, more like a mantle she had unknowingly carried. Her whole life the spirit stepped forward, its form shifting, swirling, until faint features appeared beneath the darkness, a face not fully shaped, but enough to see the echo of a man, a hunter, a father, a nightmare disguised as flesh. Amina, breath slowed. She felt no terror, only a deep sorrow, a sorrow that reached back through years of silence and nights, when her mother held her tight, whispering that danger did not always come with claws. Sometimes it came with intentions. Chief Cardu spoke again, his voice slow, heavy like drums echoing through mountains. This is the face of the man who wanted you, the man whose desire for your spirit twisted his own blood through darkness and made your mother hide from every shadow. He pointed at Malu, whose body shook as the spirits circled him. Your father cursed his own line. When he failed to take what he sought, his failure became bitterness, his bitterness became darkness, his darkness became the oath your mother believed was protection, and now all paths. The night after the truth rose from every shadow of the household, Lami felt the weight of generations swirling around her like ancient winds, guiding her steps through the dim corridors of her mother's former home, a house now trembling with both sorrow and release. The ancestors had spoken, the spirits had risen, and the lies her husband built had shattered beneath the force of truth. Yet the road to peace was not quiet nor simple, for the night held memories that refused to sleep, and the land itself seemed to breathe with waiting breath, as if urging her to claim the justice that had been denied. Lami stepped outside into the courtyard, where the soil felt warm beneath her bare feet, a warmth she knew was not from the sun, but from the ancestors gathering in unseen form, their presence wrapped around her like silent guardians, reminding her that healing comes with courage, and courage demands walking through every shadow before reaching dawn. She closed her eyes and listened. The wind carried her mother's voice, soft, gentle, and echoing like a memory refusing to fade, and it whispered, "Rise, my child, the truth has chosen you. Stand and see what remains after lies burn away." Inside the house, her husband Danjuma sat against the wall, trembling like a branch stripped bare by a violent storm, his face, hollow eyes distant, as if he too heard the spirits, but could not comprehend their messages. He had witnessed everything from the revelation of his betrayal to the confession he never wished to make, and now in the cold silence of truth, he was a man stripped of all masks, all arrogance, and all the false strength he once used to control and deceive. His breathing was shallow, his hands shaking as if the ancestors had marked him and placed him before judgment. Lami walked slowly back toward him, her steps calm, deliberate, filled with the power of someone who had faced the storms of spirit and survived. Danjuma looked up, his voice shaky. "Lami, please listen to me. You must believe that I never wanted things to go so far. Fear guided me, not hatred. But fear stood like a weak fence between me and honesty." He bowed his head like a man at a grave, but Lami felt no pull of his remorse, for remorse meant little when spoken after ruin had already been carved into the heart. She looked at him with eyes no longer clouded by confusion. The ancestors lifted the veil, and now she saw him for what he had always been, a man who feared truth more than he valued loyalty. A man broken not by guilt, but by being caught. She said nothing, for silence often tells truths words cannot, and her silence trembled through him like thunder beneath the earth. He lowered his gaze and whispered again, "I was jealous and afraid of losing everything, you, your mother, even myself, when your mother warned you about my lies. I panicked. I thought she wanted to destroy our marriage." And she paused, unsure of how to continue, for even his confession tasted bitter, like smoke lingering after a fire. She knelt before him, but her posture held no softness, only the calm certainty of someone who had crossed the threshold between confusion and clarity. She spoke slowly, each word shaped by truth. "I trusted you. I defended you even when the spirits whispered warnings. You laughed at my pain. You mocked the death of the woman who raised me, and you carried secrets that killed trust more than any blade. Could you did not break me, you revealed yourself, and revelation is a kind of freedom." Danjuma shook his head, tears forming, though Lami knew his tears belonged not to grief, but to fear of losing the life he built, fear of the ancestors' judgment, fear of consequences rising like floodwaters around him. Lami felt their presence again, the ancestors watching, waiting, gidding. She stood, lifted her hand, and placed it gently against her own chest, her heart beat steady like a drum, sounding across a distant valley. and she spoke with a strength borrowed from the women before her. My mother did not die so her truth could be buried. My ancestors did not rise so fear could silence them. I will not remain in a house built on lies and shadows. The spirits walk with me, and where they lead I will go. Dienjuma lowered his forehead to the floor, shaking in desperation, but Lami turned away, stepping toward the door, her movement graceful and final like a chapter closing on its own. She opened the door, and the night air greeted her thick, with the scent of wet soil and moonlit wind. She stepped outside, knowing that one step into the night meant one step into her new beginning. The ancestors surrounded her, their invisible presence pulsing like drumming hearts, guiding her feet as she left behind the weight of betrayal and walked into a future shaped not by lies but truth. As she reached the edge of the compound, a soft glow formed before her, the gentle shimmer of ancestral light, lifting from the ground like fireflies weaving a path through the night. She followed, trusting the guidance, for the spirits had never misled her. They carried her through forest paths, through narrow trails, where branches whispered stories, through leaves that rustled like ancient tongues, speaking sacred syllables. She felt no fear, only recognition, as if her soul remembered these paths long before her body walked them. The path led her to her mother's resting place, a small clearing, surrounded by ancient baobab trees whose trunks were thick and wise like elders watching over the land. The moonlight poured down like a blessing, bathing the clearing in silver light. Lami knelt, touched the earth, and felt her mother's warmth rising through the soil, as if her spirit had simply changed form, not vanished. She closed her eyes and breathed deeply, letting grief rise, then fall like waves that finally found shore. My mother, she whispered, I see everything now, your warnings, your love, your presence in the wind. I am no longer blind, I follow your voice. And I honor your truth. The earth beneath her seemed to hum softly. The baobab leaves swayed, though no wind touched them, and the air shimmered as her mother's spirit rose, gentle and calm. Lami felt her mother's hand, though invisible, rest upon her shoulder, and a warmth spread through her body, strong as sunrise, soft as a lullaby, steady as a heartbeat. You are free, my daughter, her mother's voice spoke inside her chest, not loud, not demanding, but steady like a stream that never dries. You carry the strength of our blood, the wisdom of our line, the courage of the spirits. Walk forward, for your story begins now, not in pain, but in truth. Let go of the shadows, return to the living world, and build a life carved from light, not fear. Lami opened her eyes and tears slid silently down her cheeks, but these were not the tears of sorrow, they were the tears of release, of understanding, of transformation. She rose slowly, wiping her face, but not the strength her mother gifted her. She bowed her head once, then turned back toward the village, her steps steady, confident, lifted by the sacred presence traveling with her. When she returned to the compound, dawn was rising, paint in the sky with deep gold and warm amber like the colors of a new destiny unfurling. She knew her choice, she knew her path. She walked into the house, gathered her few belongings, and stood at the doorway one last time, her voice quiet yet firm. Danjuma, our story ends. Here may the ancestors guide you toward truth if you choose it, but I no longer walk beside you. Before he could speak, she stepped outside, closed the door behind her, and walked away. The sunlight touched her face, as if blessing her journey. Children ran through the village, laughing. Women carried water pots. Men greeted the new morning, all unaware of the transformation unfolding within her. But the ancestors knew, and she knew she was no longer the woman burdened by lies. She was the woman chosen by truth, shaped by spirit, strengthened by legacy. As she walked beyond the village, a new path formed before her, one written by the voices of her ancestors, by the memory of her mother, and by the strength she discovered within herself. She whispered a final vow, carried by the wind into the waiting world. I choose truth, I choose life, I choose myself. And the ancestors answered in the rustling leaves, in the warming soil, in the rising sun, walking with her into the beginning of her new dawn. The morning after Lami left her old life behind, the air felt different around her, as if the world itself breathed with a gentler rhythm each step. She took along the dusty village road, carried the weight of endings, but also the quiet rise of beginnings. The sky glowed with soft sunrise colors, stretching across the horizon like woven cloth, dyed by the hands of ancient spirits. She walked slowly, letting the wind guide her path, letting her heart speak louder than the memories she carried. She was no longer searching for truth, she was a woman moving forward with it. The village stretched behind her, growing smaller with each step. Yet she did not look back, for the ancestors walked ahead of her, whispering guidance in the rustling leaves and the distant calls of morning birds. She passed farmlands, where early farmers lifted their heads to greet the day. Some nodded to her, offering warm smiles, sensing a shift in her spirit. Lami returned their gesture with a soft bow of her head, feeling lightness growing within her like a seed, finally reaching sunlight. As she reached the riverbank, the flowing water shimmered beneath the rising sun, and she felt drawn to its surface. The river had always been a place of cleansing, a place where the boundary between the living and the spiritual thinned like morning mist. She knelt at the edge, pressing her palms into the cool soil, feeling the earth's heartbeat echo through her skin with slow, steady breaths. She lowered her hands into the water, letting it flow through her fingers, as if washing away the last remnants of the life she left behind. "My mother," she whispered, though no tears came. Her heart felt open, peaceful, free. "I walk in truth now. Your warnings, your strength, your love, they carried me through. And I carry you with me." The river seemed to rise, slightly rippling around her hands. As if acknowledging her words, she closed her eyes and felt a warmth behind her, like a familiar embrace, her mother's presence, gentle, steady. Unwavering, she felt it lift her spirit, reminding her that she was never alone and never would be. When she stood again, she followed the river path, which wound through tall grass and scattered acacia trees, their shadows stretching long over the ground. The wind wrapped around her like a shawl, whispering stories of those who walked before her, their lessons, their courage, their sacrifices, guiding her steps. A soft calm settled over her as she walked, not hurried, not hesitant, simply moving with purpose, shaped by clarity and strength. After a long stretch of silence, she reached a clearing where a small market was beginning to stir. Vendors spread out woven mats, women arranged baskets of fresh fruit and handmade goods. Children skipped between stalls, their laughter ringing like bells. Lami entered the market, gently weaving between people, her steps calm and grounded, her spirit shining quietly beneath her calm expression. An elderly woman selling carved wooden charms looked up as Lami approached. The old woman's eyes sparkled with recognition. Though they had never met, she smiled a deep, knowing smile and said, "Child, the ancestors walk with you today." Lami felt warmth rise in her chest. Surprised yet comforted, she nodded and replied softly, "They have guided me through many shadows." The woman extended one of the charms, a small carving of a bird taking flight, wings, open head, lifted skyward, a symbol of freedom, of rising from ashes. "This is yours," the old woman said without asking for payment. Lami hesitated, but the woman shook her head firmly. "The gift is from those who watch over you. Take it and walk your path with courage." Lami accepted the charm, holding it, gently feeling the smooth surface warmed by the woman's hands. She tied it around her wrist, and a soft pulse of energy traveled through her arm like a blessing. She thanked the woman, bowing deeply before continuing through the market. As she left the clearing, her path led her toward a nearby hillside covered in tall golden grass that swayed with the morning breeze. She walked upward, her steps steady and sure, each one lifting her closer to the open sky. When she reached the top, she paused, taking in the vast stretch of land before her, the fields, the rivers, the distant mountains, painting a picture of a world filled with possibility, a world she was finally ready to step into. Lami sat in the grass, letting the wind brush through her hair, the sunlight warming her face. Silence wrapped around her, peaceful and deep. She closed her eyes, listening to the distant sounds of life drifting below, laughter, footsteps, chatter, each sound a reminder that the world continued its rhythm, shaping moments with gentle flow. She breathed deeply, feeling gratitude rise through her like a slow, steady flame, lighting every corner of her heart. After a long moment, she heard footsteps approaching, soft, steady, not hurried. She opened her eyes to see a young woman from the village, climbing the hill, her face bright and warm. She carried a small cloth bundle in her arms. As she reached Lami, she paused, catching her breath before speaking softly. "Sister, I brought this for you. The elders sent me. They said you might need strength for your journey." Lami accepted the bundle. Inside, she found dried fruits, roasted groundnuts, and a flask of cool water, simple gifts, yet filled with intention and care. She looked up at the young woman, touched by her kindness. "Thank you," she said. "Your elders have generous spirits." The young woman smiled. "The ancestors whispered your story through the village. Many feel your courage, many walk with you in spirit. They wish to honor that." Lami nodded, feeling her heart swell with warmth, knowing she was not alone, even beyond her own ancestors. She shared a moment of quiet gratitude with the young woman before the woman bowed light and began her descent back down the hill, leaving Lami once again with the wind and the wide open sky. She looked at the bundle in her lap, then at the bird charm on her wrist. She felt the presence of her mother, the ancestors, the village, the land itself embracing her, reminding her that even separation can lead to unity, even endings can shape new beginnings. She inhaled deeply, letting the scent of earth and grass fill her senses, letting strength settle into her bones. After resting, she rose again and continued her journey, moving away from the familiar lands of her childhood into regions touched with new possibilities. The path grew narrower, winding between clusters of tall trees and dense shrubs. Yet she felt no fear. The ancestors walked beside her, their unseen presence like soft footsteps matching her pace. She heard their whispers, guiding her forward, lifting her spirit, shaping her resolve. As she journeyed deeper into the forest, air thickened with the scent of wild herbs and blooming flowers. Sunlight filtered through branches, creating shifting patterns upon the ground, each beam of light guiding her like a gentle lantern, leading her onward. Time passed. Unmeasured, the forest alive, with vibrant sounds, chirping birds, rustling leaves, distant calls of unseen creatures, all forming a symphony that wrapped around her like a protective song. Eventually she reached another clearing, this one quieter, more sacred. A small circle of stones stood at the center, arranged by ancient hands, marking a place where spirits often gathered. She felt it immediately, a hum through the air, a vibration in the soil, an energy pulsing like a hidden heartbeat. She stepped into the circle slowly, respectfully, and the moment she did, the wind fell silent, the forest stilled, as though watching her with collective breath held. A soft glow rose from the stones, faint at first, then stronger, illuminating the space around her. She felt her mother's presence again, and then the presence of others, women of her lineage, strong, wise, unbroken. They formed a circle around her, not in physical form, but in spirit, shadows of light shaping their silhouettes, their energy wrapping around her like a cloak, woven with wisdom, courage, history. One spirit stepped forward, her voice, a blend of many yet unmistakably clear. Child of our blood, you have walked through betrayal and emerged in truth. Your heart remains pure, your courage remains strong now. You must choose your path forward, for the world waits for the woman you are becoming, free from chains, free from deception, free to rise. Lami felt her soul open hearing their words. She bowed her head in reverence, then lifted her gaze steady and unwavering. I choose life shaped by truth, guided by spirit. I choose to walk not with fear, but with purpose, not with sorrow, but with wisdom, not with silence, but with strength. And the spirits around her shimmered with approval, as if stars flickered in their forms, their presence warm and powerful, embracing her with fierce pride and love. The circle brightened one more time before slowly fading into the surrounding air, leaving the clearing quiet once again. But Lami felt the strength they gifted her glowing within her chest, like a steady flame that would never dim. She stepped out of the stone circle feeling taller, lighter, renewed with purpose. As she continued her journey, the forest began to thin, opening toward a vast plain, stretching endlessly beneath the bright sky. She paused at the edge, breathing in the expanse, feeling possibility unfurl before her, a life waiting to be shaped by her own hands, not bound by lies, not tied to shadows, but free, open, honest. She touched the small bird charm on her wrist, feeling its carved wings beneath her fingers, and whispered softly to herself and to the spirits who walked with her, I rise. And with that she stepped forward into the wide open world, carrying truth, strength, and the legacy of her ancestors into her new beginning. The sun hung low in the sky, painting long golden streaks across the land. As Lami reached the edge of the great plain, the air hummed softly around her, warm and alive, carrying the whispers of distant horizons. She stood still for a moment, breathing in the scent of dry grass, warm soil, and the faint perfume of blooming wildflowers. Her heart felt open wide like a door finally unlocked after years of waiting. She had walked through shadows, faced truth, embraced her lineage, and now the world stretched before her, unbroken and full of promise. She took slow steps forward, the earth firm beneath her feet, each stride steady like a drumbeat echoing through her bones. She could almost hear the ancestors chanting softly, guiding her, raising her, lifting her. As she moved, the wind brushed her cheeks gently, as if blessing her journey, and she felt the small bird charm on her wrist warm against her skin, pulsing with quiet life, reminding her that freedom was not something given, it was something chosen, something claimed. As she walked, she remembered the weight of betrayal, the sting of pain, the shock of secrets that once held her heart captive, yet none of those memories carried the same sharpness they once had. They now floated behind her like distant smoke, fading into the sky. They had shaped her, but they no longer bound her. They had taught her, but they no longer caged her. She was something new, something stronger, forged in truth, shaped in courage, lifted by spirit. After many hours, she reached a small settlement at the end of the plain. Tiny homes made of clay and straw lined the path, smoke rising gently from round huts, children running barefoot through the dust, their laughter ringing like flutes in the warm air. As Lami approached, the first group of villagers paused, watching her with curiosity, their eyes warm, gentle, welcoming. An elder stepped forward, her back slightly bent, but her presence proud, steady, and full of wisdom. Daughter, the elder said with a voice like soft thunder, you carry the scent of long journeys and the strength of many trials. You are welcome here if you seek rest, or if you seek new roots. Lami bowed her head deeply, gratitude swelling through her heart. Home was not a place she realized. Home was wherever truth lived, wherever spirit guided, wherever peace could grow. She smiled softly, lifting her gaze to meet the elder's eyes. I seek a place where I can breathe, where I can build, where I can live in light. The elder nodded slowly, understanding glowing in her eyes, Then rest here, child, grow here, heal, here the land welcomes you, and so do we. They led her into the heart of the settlement, where a fire crackled in the center of a wide circle. Men and women sat weaving baskets, preparing food. Tending to tools, their movements calm, grounded, peaceful. Children danced near the fire, singing small songs, their voices rising with joy. Lami felt warmth spread through her chest. This village was different, simple, but full of life, full of spirit, full of hope. A young girl approached Lami shyly, holding a small clay cup filled with cool water. She offered it with both hands, her eyes wide and bright. Lami accepted the water, kneeling to meet the girl's height. "Thank you, little one," the girl smiled and whispered softly. "The ancestors like you, they talk about you in the wind." Lami felt her breath catch, surprise mixing with tenderness. She touched the girl's cheek gently and replied, "The ancestors speak through all of us. Some listen with fear, others with strength. I choose strength." Night began to fall soft and slow, the sky shifting into deep blue speckled with early stars. Villagers lit torches, placing them around the settlement, their flames flickering like dancing spirits. Lami sat near the central fire, surrounded by warm faces and gentle voices. She listened as they shared stories of seasons, rains, harvests, old spirits who guarded the land, and small miracles that shaped their days. She felt her soul resting, settling, breathing finally without heaviness. When the fire burned low and the night deepened, Lami stood and walked toward a quiet open field just beyond the settlement. She looked up at the vast sky, stars shining like grains of salt scattered across dark cloth. She closed her eyes, lifting her face to the heavens, feeling a deep pull inside her, as if the ancestors gathered close once more, surrounding her, embracing her, completing her journey. "Mother," she whispered into the night, her voice soft but steady, "I am here. I am free. I have become who I was meant to be." She felt a warm breeze circle her, a familiar presence, gentle, unwavering, loving. A whisper touched her spirit, words without sound, but full of meaning. "My child, you walked through darkness with truth. You faced shadows with courage. You broke curses with forgiveness. Now walk in peace. All paths ahead belong to you." Her heart swelled with emotion, not pain, but deep, glowing gratitude. She breathed slowly, letting peace settle into every corner of her soul like cool water filling dry earth. She opened her eyes, and the sky seemed to glow brighter, the stars pulsing softly, as if echoing the blessing of her ancestors. When she returned to the settlement, the villagers had prepared a small hut for her, newly built, freshly swept, waiting for her presence. She stepped inside, and the warmth of the space wrapped around her like a blanket woven with care. She sat on the woven mat placed neatly in the corner, her body relaxing, her mind clear, her spirit full. She touched the bird charm once more and whispered quietly but firmly, "I rise again and always." The night held her gently, and Lami drifted into sleep, not with fear, not with sorrow, but with peace, pure, steady, unbroken, the kind of peace born from truth, courage, and the strength to let go. And so her journey came to its end, not the end of her life, but the end of pain, the end of silence, the end of lies, and the beginning of becoming a woman fully shaped by her own light, a woman who walked with ancestors, a woman who carried truth as her shield, strength as her companion, and freedom as her path. In the quiet of that new home beneath the watchful stars, Lami's spirit rested, knowing she had stepped out of darkness forever and walked into the wide, bright world waiting for her with open arms.